Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are hearing this. My name is Squeak, and we have a lot to talk about. The United Kingdom found a totalitarian solution to their rising healthcare burden. A World War I memorial came under fire from militant atheists and social justice warriors. Conservative fears of transgender bathroom rape came to fruition. And we found out who really was behind the Russian collusion scandal. All this and more this week on the Squeakly Report.
We, the American people, are at war. How many rich, cigar-chomping megalomaniac health insurance CEOs doubling their profits? How many people have to die before we're willing to admit that we have a problem here? My name is Squeak Attack. Get used to me. I'll try not to flip my lid too much.
Last week, the Secret Service demonstrated an unconventional though super effective way to catch Pokemon when 36-year-old Curtis Combs dressed as a Pikachu and broke into the White House. He was quickly apprehended by Secret Service, who took him in for questioning. Meanwhile, you got President Trump sitting there looking over the grounds from his office. He had this look of pure rage on his face because he was remembering all those times he ran out of Pokeballs trying to catch a Pikachu for himself and had to beg Melania for her credit card number, in order to buy more Pokeballs. Because, like I said last week, people are still apparently playing that game. No, but seriously, the guy claimed he wanted to be a YouTube star and was deemed not to be dangerous. As it turned out, a guy was just filming him running around the White House dressed as a Pokemon. The president was actually not at home at the time, so yay. Good to know the Secret Service is working when the president's not around to keep an eye on them. Well, it doesn't really matter anyway, considering Trump already has an electric rat named Jeff Sessions on his shoulders, so he really didn't end up missing much. The man is currently being charged with unlawful entry. Bo Bergdahl, that sergeant we traded several terrorists for, who was allegedly tortured in Afghanistan, was apprehended by enemy forces after leaving his post, which has led him to a felony desertion charge. He claims he was actually trying to report an unspecified incident to his commanding officer, and that's really all that we know about his reasoning. He also claims that, well, hey, at least the terrorists were honest. They told him what they were going to do to him. Yeah, newsflash, bro. They told you they were going to kill you. They didn't kill you. You're still alive. Seems like he's a victim, right? He gets captured, tortured, used as one of the most precarious bargaining chips in modern history, all just for leaving a post. Here's the issue. We traded 5 terrorists believed to be incredibly dangerous, some of which have returned to active duty, for the life of a man who turned out to not only be incredibly irresponsible, but also comes from a family of Taliban sympathizers. They have a history of violent threats against the American people. Their patriarch, his father, taught himself to speak in all the most common tongues associated with terrorism, and he's believed to have some level of objective proficiency in Pashto, Arabic, and Urdu. At a rally, he even stated the following a few years back. Bo, my son, if you can hear me, we are part of the peace process. You are part of ending the Afghan war. Have faith, do good works, tell the truth, and have patience that can only come from God. We are being tested. Tested? You mean like the 6 soldiers who lost their lives trying to find your sorry hide? And it all raises this air of suspicion, of course, and mostly because none of it actually makes any sense. Your child is being held captive by people who want you dead as well. What do? Become one of them and apologize for the depravity? But the SOB is going away for a very long time, and thank God for that. Oh, wait, except for the fact that he's now a tremendous tax burden. Yeah. One bullet. Just one bullet. That's all it takes to snuff these problems out, to nip these things in the bud. We risked so much and lost so much in this war over a single ungrateful soldier. He never appreciated any of this to begin with. But you know who does appreciate the country we live in? Yeah, I'm going to say it again. Donald J. Trump. Welcome to the Trump Guard portion of our show. Yeah, that's a stupid name, but that's what we're calling it right now. Tweet me at Squeak_Attack if you have a better idea. Sergeant LaDavid T. Johnson was one of 4 soldiers who died in the line of duty in Niger. These guys were ambushed by ISIS members while on duty. As is not terribly uncommon, President Trump called his widow, Maisha, to offer his condolences. Well, Florida Representative Frederica Wilson has decided to launch a national fake news tirade against the president, and let me tell you, if you think for 1 second I'm exaggerating about this fake news thing, try searching online for any article that even mentions the entire quote that she's complaining about. Here, let me explain. According to Mrs. Johnson, Trump said the following. He knew what he signed up for, but when it happens, it hurts anyone. So as usual, the media, and particularly this disco rodeo clown-looking freak show, again, Representative Frederica Wilson, look at her up. Seriously, this is a weird woman. She attacked the president and pretended that he only stated the first half of this quote. Folks, this isn't even an example of Trumpinese needing to be translated. This is a blatant lie, hiding half of the quote, just like he did with that other famous quote where he said, "You can grab him by the pussy, and they let you." Yeah, that's the quote. That's a quote that had half the country up in arms over something stupid, some social commentary as stated by a rich billionaire who gets a lot of attention that he doesn't even want. It's blatant dishonesty, the quintessential example of fake news. And can we take a minute and talk about this freak show Wilson? I mean, come on. What kind of an adult, let alone one in public office, dresses like that? Professionalism is dead, people. We thought it was bad when presidential candidates showed up with the first button of their shirt undone, when they showed up without ties on. Holy crap. Let me tell you something, lady. You don't have the face to pull off an outfit like that, and you certainly don't have the body for such a tight suit. Seriously, again, you look like a freaking disco rodeo clown. You look like if a juggalo fell into a tub of glitter. You know, some people can pull off the cowboy hat. Sheriff David A. Clark of Milwaukee, good example. This guy pulls off the cowboy hat well. Representative Wilson, seriously, why is there so much weird crap in Florida anyway? I mean, where else can you hire a live alligator for your son's 5th birthday party, or watch a woman throw hot cheese at a convenience store clerk? But I think any top 10 list of things that make Florida a weird state to live in would include this woman right after that law that forbids strolling on the streets of Hialeah. I don't know what's worse, her fashion sense or the fact that people listen to the crap that comes out of her mouth. Speaking of dribble, remember when all CNN did 24/7 was accused the Trump administration of shady dealings with Russian lawyers? Well, it recently came to light that the Clintons were the ones making the shady deals with the Russians all along. In 2010, under the watch of then-President Barack Obama, the Clintons signed off on a trade deal with the Kremlin, which netted the Clinton Foundation alone $145 million from investors. What did Russia get out of this deal? Control and possession of 20% of American-produced uranium. Know what uranium's used to make? Bombs. Russia, if you're not aware, is a country that has forsaken all forms of non-technological progress. Gays are still jailed there. Media is controlled by the state, and Putin's pretty much going to be in control of something in that country for the rest of his life, be it as prime minister or his current post as president. See, Putin was originally denied a 3rd presidential term as stated in their constitution, no doubt inspired by American law which forbids a president from serving 3 elected terms. So his successor, Dmitry Medvedev, appointed him prime minister just 1 day after his own election. However, that law apparently only applies to consecutive terms, meaning in 2012 Putin was able to be re-elected despite heavy accusations of vote rigging. In other words, Putin and Medvedev are in cahoots, and we can expect this guy to be in power for a long freaking time. So what does this mean for all those conspiracy theories about Putin possibly declaring war against the US over the presidency? Yeah, Putin would have been happy with either candidate winning the election. He likes Trump on a personal level and believes he's willing to play nice with the Kremlin, and he likes the Clinton-Obama collective on a financial level, as he can only profit from their position. However, remember that this is a country that only pretends to be a democratic union. What the people don't know won't hurt them, it seems, as they actually think they have some degree of control, blind to the totalitarian underbelly of their government. This is the country we sold uranium to, and for nothing but Hillary Rodham Clinton's personal profit. The worst part? The media almost unanimously refuses to cover this. It's one of the few things that you can Google and actually find factual information on, simply because none of Google's little bedroom buddies like Salon or Slate are reporting on it. Why would they? They can't do anything to spin this blatant racketeering in the Clintons' favor, so they just pretend it isn't happening. In return, the Clintons get off scot-free. A reminder that we should all thank God every day for the fact that Hillary Clinton is not our president and that Obama is out of that office for life. Another fun story I was reading up on, and by fun, I mean the entire conservative base told you so, and now it's happened, and half of the American people blatantly refuse to listen. And why would they? I mean, it sounds like complete lunacy. I would be a liar if I didn't admit that some part of me is satisfied that our rhetoric was right all along, and then there's another part that feels that I deserve to have my head slammed in a car door for thinking like this. Why? Because guess what? A little girl, just 10 years old, got raped by a tranny in a bathroom, and I was reading over a Snopes article, and all they seem to care about is the fact that it wasn't because of transgender bathroom laws. Yeah, that's what matters here. Oh, a little girl got raped. But that's okay, because guess what? It wasn't in a public restroom. They even go as far as to claim it wasn't a rape, but just a sexual assault, which we explained last week are not the same thing, right? He stuck his dick inside of something. That's rape, you retards. Rape, not sexual assault, full-blown rape. And then the article goes on to say that this story is merely the fabrication of conservative media outlets looking high and low for an example of this happening. You know, I am so upset about this having happened. I haven't even been able to explain the actual story, have I? Michelle Martinez, formerly known as Miguel Martinez, because screw originality, am I right? I mean, if you're going to adopt a fake name, it might as well be the name that sounds the most similar and has the closest etymological root to your given name, right? My usual policy is to refer to people by whichever of the two gender pronoun sets used for human beings, he or she, him or her, his or her. Nothing else, though, as long as they tell me which they want me to use first. You can't hold it against me if I can't tell. However, I do make an exception for cases like these. What did he do exactly? Touched the little girl's breasts, then her vagina, there's the sexual assault, and then penetrated her. In other words, rape, R-A-P-E, full-on rape. Snopes, it's rape. Now, to be fair, they would have a decent argument if they focused their energy on the fact that this was in a private home bathroom, not a public restroom. If the argument was simply that, yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with transgender bathroom laws, okay, that would be fine. That would at least make sense. But the article, instead of reporting on the case, focuses entirely on proving claims that sites like Daily Wire and Fox News are completely unfactual and irrational about their takes on this issue. Why did you politicize a traumatic event that probably screwed this poor child up for life? What kind of psycho do you have to be? Sorry, give me a minute. Okay, no more raging at Snopes, I promise. Regardless of the situation, this doesn't change my nor anybody else's views on the transgender bathroom debate. If anything, it strengthens our resolve against this kind of thing. Anything with a penis has a statistically higher chance of committing a sexual crime than anything with a vagina. That's just biology. We are the horny half of the species. Do you really want that in the women's restroom? Do you really feel comfortable knowing that there is a person in that bathroom with you who has an exponentially, statistically higher chance of assaulting you? You know that place inside of every Walmart where you can't be there to protect your daughter? The one place where you're just supposed to hope she's going to come out safe? If laws were passed allowing anyone to do their business wherever they damn well pleased, that little security would be completely kaput. Done. Gone. Dead and buried. There's been a push for inclusiveness in a lot of areas lately. Women's sports are forced to deal with biological men masquerading as biological women, and it's hitting our armed forces. We covered this in a previous episode. Entire countries are criminalizing the misgendering of people, and I'm sorry, but honestly, how in the bluest of hells are you supposed to know these things upon first meeting someone? No wonder they're making up random all-encompassing words like she and whatever else they're using nowadays to describe people of all genders. And all this for just a measly little fraction of a % of our society. What alternative reality are we in where we sacrifice the safety and mental security of more than 99% of our citizens just to make a fraction of a % feel a little bit less uncomfortable with their life choices? What goes on in a person's head that makes them think any of this is a good idea? Politics? Moral obligation? Progress? And then they tell you you're being intolerant for being more worried about a child's well-being than their happiness. You only get one innocence, people. You're more worried about a mentally unstable person than the well-being of a child. Yeah, I said it. It's mental instability. I don't know if the word disorder, which gets thrown around a lot by the right, is really the correct word to use in this situation. But I do know trans people have a higher % chance of other conditions, which are disorders, including depression and BIID. You know, that disorder that makes you want to chainsaw your legs off? Seems logical that a disorder that makes you want to neuter yourself or cut your dick up will be in the same family of crazy, right? But if you want to do something, become something other than what you are, that's fine. It's your life, live it the way you want. You do you. Changing your gender in practice is really no different from dyeing your hair, getting a tattoo, getting metal spikes permanently implanted into your nipples. Yeah, I've seen that. It was horrible. I think that's also some form of mental instability, but we can argue about that at a later date. If you're going to make these kinds of changes, you have to accept the fact that people are going to notice. And some people are going to hate on you for it. People hate on other people because of their weight, the color of their skin, the kinds of clothes they wear. How can you expect such special treatment as to be protected from people staring or making snide comments at the bathroom sink? That's 30 seconds of your life right there, washing your hands at the bathroom sink. Here's a basic biology lesson for all of you. Before you came into conscious existence, you were in two parts. Your mother had these things inside her called ova. Each ovum is effectively the same, aside from carrying different information which will be used to arrange your genetic code. Things like hair color, how tall you're going to be. Your father, meanwhile, had these things called sperm inside of him. They come in two varieties, long tails and short tails. Again, they contain genetic code. The long tail contains a Y chromosome as well. The short tail contains an X chromosome, and that right there is what determines your gender. You weren't born a male but supposed to be a female. You were born a male because you were supposed to be a male. Because God created you as a male, if you so please, or because it just so happened that the sperm with the longer tail got to the egg first. Now, to be fair, the vast majority of trans people are neither pedophiles nor child rapists. Likewise, the vast majority of everyone else aren't neither. You wouldn't leave your 8-year-old alone at the mall, so it's understandable that you wouldn't want to leave your 8-year-old in the same bathroom as a person who could potentially be mentally unstable, as well as a sexual deviant. And yes, it is a form of sexual deviance. Oh, but it'll never happen. There has never been a trans person who sexually assaulted a child. Oh wait, Michelle Martinez, remember her from 5 minutes ago? Yet they just completely deny things like this. You know what did happen in a public restroom though? James Thomas Shoemaker of Pennsylvania went into the women's restroom and filmed a 10-year-old girl in the stall next to his, and so shortly after this push for all-inclusive restrooms too. Yeah, but he wasn't trans, he was just a psycho. How can you tell? How can you tell? You operate on this idea that a person with a beard and dangly bits can still be a woman on the inside, so you don't know that. But it's irrelevant. He's a sicko regardless. He traumatized a child. And that's the takeaway, people. A bunch of 20-something Portland hipsters on Instagram are rallying for the decisions that affect you and your family without the ability to care in the slightest about your children's well-being. I'll be honest, I certainly didn't care overtly about children when I was that young. However, it was only at the point that I walked into a middle school classroom, wrote my name on the board, and started teaching classes to children that I truly began to understand and care about their well-being. I'm assuming it's a similar process for non-teachers who become parents. Would that be a fair assumption? You need to have kids or have really young family members or work with children to truly care about their well-being? I guess this deficit that people have these days, this lack of moral compass, is just a side effect of that. Let's see, what else is going on in the world? Oh, the UK has enacted a ban on surgery for the obese and for smokers. The National Health Service, or NHS, announced an indefinite ban on surgery for these two categories of people. I can't believe I once said that the European healthcare coverage model would implode when the answer was right in front of me all along. Kill people to reduce the burden! Oh, wait, that means fewer people paying taxes, so it's not going to implode, but rather fall off the scaffold and hang there in agony for a decade or longer because someone tied the noose incorrectly and their neck isn't breaking. Just hanging there. They like doing that in the UK, right? Hanging people? That's still a thing, right? I don't know. I don't care. They're killing people either way. Of course, the Royal College of Surgeons, doctors who actually physically practice medicine rather than just writing papers on medical theory and social justice, they say it's discrimination. And it is, isn't it? It makes sense, right? I mean, you're proposing a consequence to people's actions, which they had no ability to anticipate. It's like beating your kid with a stick for breaking a plate and then taking their phone away for 48 hours for shoplifting. These consequences make no sense. You're applying the wrong kind of consequence to the wrong kind of offense. And they're consequences that don't have anything to do with the offenses that are bringing them about. They're not natural consequences. They're literally just you punishing people because of some sense of moral altruism. To recap, the UK has way too many patients and simply can't perform life-saving procedures fast enough. All because, while every citizen is contributing in equal parts, and by force to fund these procedures, they're just not bringing enough cash overall to pay their doctors, to get medical equipment, for drugs. All this is happening in a country that recently surpassed the US in terms of body weight per capita, and where a slightly higher percentage of people smoke cigarettes. So they're officially at the point where they're going to kill people to reduce the total cost of medical coverage and treatments. Now, this doesn't apply to every single type of procedure. If you show up, your heart gave out, you need to be revived, yeah, they're still going to take care of you. But as of right now, they can still choose to not insert that stent or to not clean out that artery. And you know something? They're probably in the near future going to cut all that out. Now, the good news would seem to be the fact that they allow smokers to quit and overweight patients to lose weight and then qualify for some procedures, except for the fact that weight loss takes a long time, and nicotine is addictive and is not an easy habit to drop. It's apparently to cause people to take more responsibility for their own health and well-being, wherever possible, freeing up limited NHS resources for priority treatment. Yeah, the government wants to choose who lives and dies. It's like Saw, UK edition. The government wants to force you to take care of yourself, to extend the amount of time you're paying taxes before you croak. Or is it because it's the only way they can justify discriminating against people, picking who lives and dies when it comes to life-saving medical procedures? See, this is why capitalist healthcare coverage works so much better. No discrimination. Remember a few weeks ago when I explained that hospitals in the US cannot deny you procedures even if you can't actually pay for them? Capitalism created that. In Europe, that's impossible. Now, granted, there's always been this weird trade-off system in England. You want a procedure, you may have to lose some weight. Now they're just increasing that limit. So it's not like the whole system has suddenly gone to crap all at once. It's just always been crap, and now it's just crappier. What's especially disgusting, though, about this kind of system is just how over-encompassing it is. They punish risk factors specifically, not actual risky behaviors. It's rare for a person to have a healthy BMI and still be type 2 diabetic. It's also possible, and I'm a good example of it, to be overweight but still have a normal blood pressure and blood sugar level. This is actually much more common than the former example, but under the British system, I wouldn't be qualified for certain procedures despite being less of a statistically potential burden on their system. This also applies to the fact that smokers of tobacco products other than cigarettes are at lower risk of emphysema, hypertension, lung cancer than people who work in certain industries but don't smoke, like coal miners and people who work in wood shops. The majority of bodily damage is caused specifically by cigarettes for a number of very specific reasons, mostly the extreme range of chemical additives that they put into the tobacco and the fact that people inhale. Whereas cigar smokers, for example, don't. That's why cigar smokers don't become addicted neither. But all it really is, politicians and the quacks that suck up for kickbacks. Just making decisions that are going to ruin people's lives over things that, again, they could never have anticipated were going to come under fire. Science has been thrown completely out the window, people. For our final story of the week, I want to get your thoughts on social media, so tweet me at Squeak_Attack with your thoughts on the concept of separation of church and state. A precedent that came under fire this past week. A Maryland World War I memorial shaped like a cross was deemed to be unconstitutional by a pair of conveniently organized federal judges. It hasn't been a problem for almost a century. Why is it an issue now? And if the goal is a separation of church and state, why are federal judges allowed to make decisions as to whether or not a statue is allowed to be displayed? It's total lunacy. First off, let's cut this crap about it being unconstitutional. Because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that crosses or any religious symbol is a violation of anything. In fact, much the opposite. The very first freaking amendment actually protects religious assembly from government interference. So the ruling itself, that's the part that's unconstitutional. When did this whole church and state thing come from? Like, what is this? Yeah, you ready for this one? A personal letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to a church in which he promised them a separation of church and state to protect them. See, Jefferson was a staunch believer that religion should be the domain of the people, not the government. Also a believer that events like the Crusades, the Inquisition, etc. were political movements, not religious ones. Jefferson penned a letter to a small church in the state of Connecticut expressing his support of their autonomy as an institution. In other words, Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration of Independence and the guy originally asked to write the U.S. Constitution, was a supporter of freedom of religious expression. He proposed a separation of church and state, specifically to ensure that the government could not use the church, an institution of the people and of God, to wage war or push people around, and never formally declared it into a law. Who would have thought a statue called the Peace Cross could be the subject of so much controversy? When did we get so intolerant of other people's religions? You know what, you're agnostic? Congratulations, go be agnostic, but don't force it on anyone else. It's because we perceive Christians as an overwhelming majority, so we automatically associate them with any form of oppression that we see, because white people are oppressive now, straight people are oppressive, non-trans people are oppressive, athletes are ableist and therefore oppressive. If you believe the church is oppressive or encroaching on people's rights, then congratulations, you're officially an SJW. You can't be a libertarian if you refuse to support freedom of religious expression as well, and you certainly aren't a conservative. Let people do what they want. Let people believe what they believe. That's what it means to be a libertarian. Not do whatever you can to force agnosticism onto people. Oh, if you really want, explain to me how the statue, which just so happens to be shaped like a cross, is hurting someone. That's like saying the halal chicken at the supermarket, which you're not forced to buy, is oppressing you. That's like saying the Buddha statue at the Chinese buffet or the Seinfeld marathon that's running on TBS is harming you. It's complete insanity. The cross was put there probably by Christians as a memorial to people who died, who gave their lives apparently in vain, considering that which they fought to protect was your intolerant, ungrateful ass. Do you know what World War I was like? Do you know what it was like living in a trench for weeks or even months at a time? A trench was barely your height and width? Here's what World War I was all about. You lived in the trench until they called your name. Then you climbed out of the trench, charged as fast as you can towards enemy lines, before being ground up like organ meat by a Gatling gun that's been firing at you the entire time. Your CO calls your name. You climb up and live about 3 seconds, 5 if you're lucky. The only reason we won World War I was because there were more disposable American, French, and English troops than German, Austrian, and Hungarian, and eventually they ran out of people to keep flinging at us. Now this is an oversimplification of trench warfare and the events of World War I, but you get the idea. It wasn't fun. So whatever. Tear down the statue like an ungrateful, spoiled brat. Use the death of an American hero to push your political agenda. Give uranium to people who don't know what humanity even is. Well, I'll tell you something, people. I'm not going to stand for any of that. It's been a great week for the truth, everyone. Be seeing you.
Like what you heard? Hate what you heard? Want to see me dead? Follow me on Twitter at Squeak_Attack and join our Squeak Attack feed Facebook group and fan page. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Leave a comment on the blog. And as always, have a good day.